So I wanted to talk to you, if you were out, about creating a soft gray. If you have a pencil pack that does not have a soft gray, this is what you can do if you don't have a pencil that is labeled warm gray. Now I do have one that is literally labeled warm gray. And it's kind of a warm brownish gray. It definitely is much warmer than even, do you see that? Like, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it almost has like an orangey brown slight tinge to it. And that is definitely a warm gray. To make that, and this is a nice overall gray color you can mix in with any color, any and all colors to create a shade color. You can take ultramarine blue. This is if you don't have this exact shade of warm gray. You could take ultramarine blue, which is like a purple blue. It's more of a purple blue, and that's called ultramarine blue. And it's a beautiful blue that artists, originally the pigments were from a beautiful semi-precious gemstone called lapis lazuli from Afghanistan. It was mined out of the grounds or mines in Afghanistan, and it was very expensive because it came from that particular place. But it made a beautiful shade of blue purple. Now the other color that you need is a burnt sienna, which is a type of brown. This is burnt sienna here, and I'm going to put a square of burnt sienna next to ultramarine blue. And it's just a medium brown. So these two together are going to create a warm gray. Okay, and another name for that, popular name, because sometimes they give like names to these colors, is Payne's gray. And in the United States, gray is spelled with an A, not an E. That is in England and all the other places that England at one point colonized. But for us, we are, we rejected that. And we are coming up with our own spelling for gray, which is A. The U.S. was a colony of England, but you know all that stuff. The story behind that, right? So we have burnt sienna here. And Sienna is actually a place in Italy. And I guess maybe they have these, the dirt or the clay kind of looks like these colors, burnt sienna. So let's see what happens if we could create this gray by mixing these two together. So I'm going to put some burnt sienna down. And what is this side quest we're on right here to create this color? This is to see if we could create this warm gray that we can utilize in our drawing to create shade versions of colors. Look at that. So when you mix the two colors together, and what you should do is just apply them in light layers, one over the other, several times. Okay, to make a nice even color and not have it be, not have streaks of one color that's visible like I'm doing right here because I'm rushing through. It'll create like a warmer gray. So that's basically what we're doing. Now, if this looks a little different, it's because I have all this white showing. So if I colored that in and took my time to make more layers, it should look a little bit closer to this one right here. Okay, so that's how you create a warm gray or Payne's gray that you will utilize to create shade colors, like some shadow, where shadow has fallen on a color, or where areas of shade with a color are. So that's how to create that, and that's very important. So throughout the piece, I'm going to keep this piece of paper on the side so I could test my colors out. And then this is going to be, of course, my main piece of work. All right, So we did our ceiling, we did our main wall color, and now I'm going to, in order to keep the color intense, if you want to make the color intense and not grayish or neutralize it, then you pick a color that may be similar to the lighter value color that you used. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit different. This might be a little too greenish. So I'm looking for like a darker version of this color. Here's something called bluegrass. And here's one called light blue. Light blue sounds like it would be a good, these two look like they might have too much green in the blue. So I'm gonna test it over here. Here's my light blue. Here's my, oh, that's my Smyrna blue. That's the lightest blue I had. Now this is my light blue. Okay, that looks like that would work as a darker version of the color. Here's my bluegrass. That definitely has some green in it. And then this is my cerulean blue. Now that has a little bit of, you know what, that has a little bit of some sort of green in it to make it aqua, but I like the cerulean blue. I like that kind of greenish cast to the color. It's a beautiful, like blue, beautiful blue on a sunny day type of color, you know, in the sky. So I'm gonna use the cerulean, all right? And I'm gonna use that to make my colors a little less washed out. So I'm going to layer it right on top of the light, really light Smyrna blue, or the lightest blue I was using, just to make that a little darker. Because I want to make sure that my colors look nice and saturated and not weak and washed out in my colored pencil work. Now that's kind of like the most common problem when using or starting off using colored pencils. You just make everything too light. Color, you got to think about color intensity. It's really not about going darker. It's about color intensity, creating an intense, more saturated in color type of drawing. All right. So you see that? That's a huge difference. So I'm going to press a little lighter over here. And then even lighter pressure right over here, right to the edge of the paper. I could just put it down, take my time, put it down in lightly in lines. Okay, now let's go to this side of the room and make this go from dark to light. From dark out here on the right to light into the corner. Okay, this warm gray or Payne's gray is also a good alternative to using black, unless you want to use black. Black is an extremely powerful neutral, and the neutrals are different from the rest of the colors on the color wheel. They belong in their own separate family. So the browns, the blacks, all the shades of gray in between, white, khaki, cream, all of those colors belong to this separate group called the neutrals. It's called a neutral. And so artists are very, very reluctant to use black to mix even with their colors when they're making shades of color. They want to use their own black that they mix with ultramarine blue and that burnt sienna, because it's a lot softer and less harsh. And if you've ever used black, the most common mistake that students make is they take too much. They don't understand the power of black paint, and they just take a big blob of it, and then they try to mix it with their colors to create a shade color, and it just looks black. and the color just disappears. And so what happened is they used way too much black paint. They should have just used like a little dot of it. So I missed coloring in this area right here with the wall color, which is light blue. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that right here behind the bed and in between these little scrolls here. So I missed that spot. So I'm putting that in right now. And I'm going to use this cerulean blue again to just make it a lot more intense colored over here on the right side of the right wall here. Of this wall on the other side. So you just need to add a little dot of black paint, a little at a time, if you want to darken a color. Or make your own black with these two colors, ultramarine and burnt sienna, and just add a little bit of that at a time too, and it'll give you a softer effect, a little bit more realistic effect at how even black is not that truly intense in the real world, in the lighting that's present in the real world. Okay. If you get a little blue accidentally on something, don't worry about that. And I'll explain to you why that's actually a good thing. It's a good mistake to make. All right, now I'm going to go and take my warm gray that I found. I literally have something called a warm gray in my set. It's this one right here. Warm gray. 566, that's the number for that color. So these pencils, it's every manufacturer is different. Sometimes there's a number, and sometimes there's an actual name, or sometimes there's both on a colored pencil. So that if they do sell that colored pencil individually, you could just tell them the number and just order that particular number. Okay. So this little strip of wood here and this little strip right here at the top of the wall represents what's called crown molding, and it's a piece of wooden trim. It's like a long rectangular piece of wood or strip of wood that just makes the room look a little fancier than just having just drywall meeting a drywall surface. You just put this little piece of wood there, and most of the time there's one also on the floor. So oops, we don't have one here. We could draw that in if we wanted to, but that one is that trim on the bottom is called baseboard molding, and that just helps protect the wall from people's boots and feet so they don't like scuff up the wall. So I can't see the vanishing point line or anything like that. So I'm just going to try to draw one in that's a little bit convincing. So that's just, it's going to be angled slightly so that the space in between my lines gets a little wider out here, a little narrower over here. So it looks sort of kind of like a vanishing point line. And then just the slightest thin line above that to show the top of that piece of trim. And then there's usually another piece of trim down here. And that's just like yet another little piece of wood here, which is like a quarter round piece, and that just hides the gap between the wooden floor and the wall. Sometimes you can see that on the base. I forgot what the name of that is, but each of these little pieces have their own name, and they're kind of a pain to have to cut and install. But you know, putting together a room And building the inside of a house is very complicated, as well as building the outside of the house and all the things that are attached to the outside of a house. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this floor. Let's do the floor and then we'll get into all the fun stuff here. So I drew this circular rug, but I didn't draw it at as a circle. I drew it as a oval, because whenever we look at a circle at any angle besides like straight on, like it's like right in front of your face, like a circular rug hanging on the wall, that's the only time you're going to see it as a circle. If it's laying on the floor, you're looking at the floor and the floor is going away from you. So it's at an angle. So it has to be drawn as an ellipse like this or an oval. An ellipse or an oval are the same thing. It's two different names for the same thing. So ellipse equals oval. All right, ellipse, ellipse, and oval. You know oval, but some people don't know ellipse is also the same thing. So you see how the lines kind of trail off here? Somehow that did not print. So what I'm going to do is try to redraw those lines so that they attach. And they get a little skinnier, and it gets actually thicker on the sides, and that's just the way that the perspective goes when you're looking at an oval. They should get like a little thicker on the right and the left edge. All right, now we drew in the missing lines for the rug. Let's go ahead and pick a color for the rug. All right. So these colors are not like too crazy or wild. So for the rug, what I want to do is maybe go for something a little bit brighter. This is a color called Emerald, 545. So in the Amazon set, the number is 545. So let's put a little bit of this emerald green under. It's like a blue green. Wow, it is an emerald, because beautiful emeralds can have a bluish cast to them. It depends where they come from. Emeralds are found in more than one part of the world, right? They're found in South America. They're found in the United States. They're found in Africa and Zambia. They're like found all over in more than one part of the world. So let's make this a beautiful bluish emerald green. And I'm just having my lines pretty much go in one direction, because if I change direction, those lines are going to be very, you're going to be able to see that. When you put some more layers of color on top of each other, you'll notice that less. That's why it's important to layer many, many more layers of color down. Okay, either with the same color or blended with another similar color. So all on the inside of this oval rug, not the border, we are going to shade it with this emerald green. Okay. So once you do the walls and the floor, you'll feel like you're like at least halfway there. So if I find that like there is a area of colored pencil which is just where the lines are very distracting and my eyes only go right there and constantly, then what you could do is just make some lines maybe going in a different direction so that it creates kind of a softer application of color and you don't see like stripes or lines of color. So just draw some, have your strokes of pencil maybe going in the opposite direction so you don't notice the lines as much because you've layered over those lines with more lines of color going in the opposite direction. Okay. All right, so now we have kind of like this emerald blue. So we could continue to keep applying this color, but you know what? I just want to blend it with a different green color. So what I want to do is I want to go with a slightly, you could either go with a darker or go with a lighter, and I want to go with a slightly lighter. So I'm going to use this jade green, a slightly lighter green, and just to fill in all of these little white specks. That's basically from the colored pencil skipping over some of the low points on this paper because I'm just using plain old copy paper like I usually do for my demos. But even copy paper has a texture to the surface or a tooth. It's not really, really rough, but it does have high points and low points, which kind of, the low points will not pick up the colored pencil before the high points will. So that's why you also get a lot of these little white specks. So if you press a little harder with a lighter color, because if you want to keep the green on the lighter side, maybe pick a lighter color or use the same color. It'll give you a little bit of a smoother blended effect and more intense color. Okay, the lighter color is almost like you're using it like a blender and just kind of smoothing down all of the colored pencil wax and pigment, just kind of pressing it down onto your paper and compacting that, as well as lending its own color on top. But it's a lighter color, so it's not really going to affect it that much. Okay, so now we have this beautiful kind of emerald green color, and I use this lighter green called Jade to get rid of a lot of these little white speckled spots. Okay, I hope you love to shade in color and you love coloring. If you get a little green, accidentally somewhere, don't worry, that's going to end up being a benefit later on. So don't worry about that, just leave that alone. You don't have to erase it. All right. Now the border and the carpet, let's go ahead and paint that. I won't say paint. Shade that in. So for the border, I'm going to use something interesting. I'm going to use like another type of green. I'm going to use a lime green and see what that looks like. Okay, it's still kind of in the same family of color. It's a tertiary color green, which means it's got like a little bit more yellow in the mix than blue to create this green. That's called lime green. Some people call this color, back in the day, they used to call it chartreuse, which is a very long and lengthy word for lime green. Chartreuse, but basically it's the same color, lime green. Mm-hmm. All right. Now the floor, I feel like the floor maybe could be, let's just make it brown just to represent a wooden floor. So let's go ahead and find like a regular, like a medium brown. And I like that burnt sienna, but if you want the brown to be a little bit redder, this particular brown in this set just says brown 558, but it's actually a reddish brown. I feel like it's a little reddish brown. So I'm going to use that to represent some sort of red oak floor. Okay. Make sure you sign your name on all your work, even if you are using my drawing to do the shading exercise. What you could do is right above it, sign your name, okay, and put your period number. The date 2021 is already on there, so you don't have to write the date. Just put your name first and last and the period number, so that I know it's not anybody else's work or assignment. It's your assignment. You did the work. Okay. Okay. And over here, this is also the wooden floor, so let's go ahead and put brown, that brown there too. Whatever shade of brown you want. If you don't want brown, you could use a yellow ochre, like a golden yellow, and then layer a little bit of brown over it to create like a light oak floor. Like, you know how oak, a lot of people have oak floors and they're kind of like really light yellowish wood. You could do that as well if you don't like a darker floor.